Hello, everybody. Thank you once again for tuning into the In When You're Out podcast. I'm your host, John, and today I'm here with Manuel, our good friend from TikTok. He has the opportunity today to speak a little bit about himself, and so we're going to listen to him. Introduce yourself, Manuel.
Bonjour, this is Manuel. I am from TikTok, and I'm just happy to be here enjoying this rainy Monday on Veterans Day, and just really want to stay in bed and not do anything, to be honest.
Oh, yes. Happy Veterans Day. And mind you, I do say a little information about myself. As much as you want to be online is up to you. But I am in New York. Would you care to say where you're from?
I'm definitely. I'm in California, so I'm in the infamous Silicon Valley, where all these tech companies are located.
Oh, that's very interesting. I wish I knew that before. Okay, I'll have some. I have some even better questions for you now.
Good.
I wanted to hear a little bit more about how life is for you in California because I've never been to California. I've been to Arizona, but a lot of people from Arizona hate people from California. That's kind of the consensus of what I found is that a lot of Californians they get a lot, and the same from New York, especially if I went to Texas, I could tell that there'd be some Texans that and I don't want to speak for people, but that's just my assumption so far is that they can't always get along with people like us. And why is that, Manuel?
I don't look. I think even how should I say this? If you come to California, California is really 3 states in one.
Really?
And I say that because first of all, it is a really big state. It's like the third biggest state in the state.
Yep.
In the country,
Yeah.
So if people come to California, you must understand that if you're visiting like SoCal, which includes like San Diego and Los Angeles,
okay,
the mentality is going to be much more different. The way of life is going to be much more different than someone like myself from the Bay Area, which is San Francisco, San Jose, Oakland. Like these are their major cities up here.
I got you. Okay, sure.
And then the third area, I call it the third area, is closer to the Oregon border, where it's more forested, where life is slower, much more calm, much more tame. So depending on where what you like to do, you'll have to choose where you want to go. So if you are into the whole celebrity life and flashy cars and all that kind of stuff, SoCal is definitely a good place for you.
Yeah, I can see.
Yeah. If you want something a little bit more calm, but still exciting enough, the Bay Area with San Francisco still being a very historic city is, the place for you. And even in fact, right now, a lot of people are going to start planning to go up to Lake Tahoe, which is like the third California that I say, where we go up to the mountains, do the snow in winter, or, go up to the lakes, like Lake Tahoe.
I've heard of Lake Tahoe for, so my parents, specifically my dad, they're really outdoorsy. My dad actually, he likes to hunt a lot around here.
Yeah.
And so I could definitely see. So tell me a little bit more about how the division maybe exists between those three hypothetical partitions of the state would be.
Well, it really is economic wise. So the closer you are to the more exciting parts, the more expensive it tends to be.
Oh, for sure. And sorry to interject really quick, but isn't it true that California has some of the highest prices for gas in the country?
It is. Actually, funny enough, the other day I was like, why is the gallon for just like regular, like over $5?
Oh, right now it's over $5?
Yeah, I was like 5.10 or so.
So
some change.
We're in Binghamton, New York, which is just technically right now. If I walked 5 minutes south, I'd be in Pennsylvania. Like I'm that far. I'm that close to it.
Yeah.
So our gas is actually sub $3 right now. I've seen like $2.98, $2.85. Like I think $2.85 is the lowest I've seen. But as it stands right now, it's about $3. So
that's insane.
That's so crazy.
That is insane.
So
the cheapest I've been finding here actually was $3.95. That's the cheapest, and mind you, that is with cash. Now, if you're going to pay with card, they add an additional 10 cents.
Yeah, same here. Yeah. So, what about during COVID? Did you lived in you lived where you did now during COVID?
Yes. No. I stayed here in the South Bay. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And how was gas then? Was it like $8?
Well, for us,
or I'm sorry, not like directly in COVID, like lockdown, but like afterwards, eh?
No, no, it got crazy because prices just started going up everywhere. It was hitting like the $4.50, $5 range.
Yeah.
So it was getting really expensive, and then down in LA, some places were going, I think, for $7 to $9 a gallon. Like that's how crazy it got, And but people needed to work, people needed to commute, and specifically LA, being the huge metropolitan area that it is, So that's
Right.
why gas became a commodity down there.
And isn't it true as well? And I'm not sure if you spent a lot of time in Los Angeles, but isn't it true that they have some of the worst traffic in the country?
Yes, it is. I don't spend a lot of time in LA, but at the same time, when I was there in the freeway, I'm like, this isn't so bad. I don't know what you're talking about, but
Really?
yeah. But I was just there for a couple of hours, so some Angelinos might beg to differ with the traffic.
Fair, fair. So okay, but right there, you said Angelino. So people definitely consider themselves to be different from like the idea of the entire state of California.
Yeah, yeah, no, no. Like that's why I said it's really three states in one. You know,
Yeah.
specifically, when I was saying towards the mountains and more nature-oriented area, the mentality becomes a lot more conservative.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and
Yeah,
that's the same for how it is in New York. A lot of
yeah,
people don't consider anything pretty much outside of New York City. Like even when I introduce
yeah.
myself to some people, I'll say I'm from New York, and they're like, "Oh, what's the city like?" I'm like, I could tell you about the city. I've been there a couple times, but it's 3.5 hours away from where I live. It's not.
Yeah,
So we're not city folk. However,
yeah.
where I live in Binghamton, about 50%, I would say, and this isn't like a real digit or real number, so I can't say with certainty. I would say, with my experience, about 50% of the people that live here are from the
Mm,
city at some point, whether it be 15
yeah,
years ago or the last 3 years. And so
yeah.
it's with that in mind that we have the same separation of like everything in the city is like, one way, and then everything outside in upstate New York is completely the opposite.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's exactly the same thing here, and throughout the years of California history, all of these places that I've been mentioning,
Hmm.
they tend to be popular. For some reason, economics, jobs, education. So California is always, right now we are seeing that Sacramento is growing. So Sacramento is
Sure.
technically Sacramento is the capital of the state capital,
Right.
but because of the cheaper way cost of living, everybody's moving to Sacramento from the Bay Area and Los Angeles. So we
Huh.
predict,
Interesting.
yeah. So we're predicting Sacramento in a couple of years is going to be the more expensive area to live.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. So we have an issue in New York. I think for the past like 5 years, we've lost population. Our
Yeah.
population shrinks every year. And I think I can't say with certainty, so we're talking more generally. But for our capital, I do believe that people are actually moving away from Albany. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that's I could see that being a problem, but it's more so like a shift of because I went up there actually 3 years ago or like 2.5 years ago with the girlfriend that I was with that like we spoke about briefly before the podcast, but
Yeah.
and it was like dead, like there was nobody like, and we were like, this is the capital of New York State, and there is nobody here, and it was like
Yeah.
a Thursday afternoon, and we were it was an interesting drive drive up there and like walking around, and there was plenty of buildings, but there was no people up there, and it was very interesting to see.
I know exactly when I got to Sacramento because I've been to Sacramento. I'm
Hmm.
like, this is a ghost town. Like this is there's. I was expecting a lot more people here, a lot more
Yeah,
excitement.
that's
But
interesting.
yeah,
But the way things will go, eventually it'll get more, as it gets more popular, it'll become more expensive, and then, it'll hit
it
that
is.
critical mass, but it'll want to switch back to what it was. People will leave again, go wherever they will. But that's
No,
it. That's
exactly.
interesting to think. I,
Yeah.
I, I mean, the reason I'm asking more questions about California is because it's a very similar circumstance of the people outside of New York City, myself included,
Yeah.
are so drastically different from the people in the city, and we
Mm-hmm.
have such differing values. And even for the sake of there's separate laws that are made in New York City. I think it was in 2020 or 2019. It was 2019. Weed was actually legal in New York City, but the rest of the state it was not.
Mm-hmm.
And that wasn't until the 21st, or sorry, that wasn't until 2021, 2 years later. I remember because I had gone with some friends and I had bought a edible from like this food truck, and I was like, "You guys can do this?" And they're like, "Yeah." Like, what do you mean? I was like, it's not like this in the rest of New York, and they're like, "Well, this isn't like the rest of New York. This is New York City." We're like,
Yeah.
"Okay, sure." Is
Well,
that
I
fair
don't
in your mind? Do you have in your perception of things? Is that fair? Like, if you were having a similar situation in California?
see. That's the thing. That situation never existed in California. It never did, because in San Francisco, at least on the 20th of April, 420, everybody gathers together in San Francisco and just, socializes and vibes
I mean, you can
out.
say it. It's no problem. I mean, I'm recording out of New York. It's legal here, 100%, baby.
Yeah, no, so in California, it wasn't, like you said, it wasn't legal a couple of years ago in California, but then it was an open secret. Everybody knew about it,
Fair enough. Yeah.
And yeah, so, and it's, but, things around here just have been very commercialized. I mean, there's like dispensaries everywhere around here
Yeah.
all the time, so it's become this kind of like normal thing, and it's I've gotten used to it. So it's it's not as taboo as it used to be anymore.
That's a good thing. I think honestly, we'll have to see if it ever or how long it takes before it is nationwide legalized. I at this point we're hitting the same. It's being very commercialized around here. There was a lot of local shops in the area, but we're getting to the point where it was like they're doing raids on all these small gas stations basically because they're like, oh well, we're selling whatever. It's not against the law to sell this stuff. It is against the law to sell some of the stuff that's not regulated. That's more the issue they're running into. So when you're getting into a market where it's like the same thing with any type of monopoly. The people that have a lot of money are going to buy up all these places that aren't doing good, turn them into what exactly it should be, take over the market. Basically, it's going to be one more product. It's going to be like cigarettes. So I'm happy to see this transition into that type of way of how it's treated and how it's regulated, how it's taxed, how it's distributed. But we still are seeing kind of like the corporate greed of any business that's big enough is going to come in and rule the whole rule the class basically in whoever else is in your market. So would you say it's a good thing or a bad thing that it's becoming more commercialized?
I mean, at the end of the day, it just depends who's going to serve best. If it is going to be monopolized, then it'll be like cigarettes, that perhaps in 30, 40
right,
years,
yeah, sometime for sure,
get scaled back again. Yeah. So we'll see how it goes, or maybe they're just too high to not even care about it anymore.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Well, we'll see what happens with. I mean, because it's not even in every. I think it's almost half the state. It's like 23 states in the union so far. It's legalized, so it's almost half. That's exciting to see, but. Well, I can't expect anything, from the current administration. Neither can I expect anything from the next administration and government to do anything about the legalization of marijuana.
Well, actually, I was surprised to find out a couple of years ago that Colorado also has a very high use of marijuana.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, probably some of the highest in the country.
It didn't cross my mind that someplace like Colorado, as beautiful as it is, could have this many potheads going out there and lighting up. It was pretty shocking for me, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this to you. So, like I said, I live on the border basically on of Pennsylvania and New York, and it's 100% legalized, almost fully legalized in New York basically to the highest extent, and then it's fully criminalized in Pennsline. So that means that actually back in 2020, in the summer of 2020, I got caught down there with weed and I was put on probation. And mind you, I go to I went down there, I got through processing and everything, and I come back up into New York State, and while I'm on probation, weed is legalized. And I call my PO and I'm like, "Hey, weed just got legalized in New York. Am I good?" And he's like, "Yeah, no." I was like, "What? I don't even live in Pennsylvania. Like, that doesn't even make any sense. Like, if So my personal opinions, I think the law is ass backwards when it comes to, you can arrest in one state for possession of marijuana, but the other states you can sell it. That is, for me, it's 5 minutes one way. That's crazy.
No, it's completely crazy. I completely agree. But then, I mean, I guess, when the states, they make this kind of laws, they may have good intentions, but I guess that's just another conversation for another time too. The reasoning behind these kind of mentality.
Well, there's reasoning and then there's motivation. And I personally believe a lot of the motivation comes from money. If somebody's not making money in a regard, then they're not going to pass any law. They don't have any incentive to do it. But if
Yeah.
you make it fiscally advantageous for that person to be receiving benefits under the passing of this new law, and it includes, whatever type of allowances for a marijuana dispensary, then yeah, all of a sudden the whole dichotomy can change, and all of a sudden,
Hmm.
they can switch their morality up. But I
Yeah.
feel like
No.
that's you could paste that example onto a lot of subjects that we could have grievances with our government wise.
Yeah, no, but I still wouldn't trade this government for any other one, to be honest.
Yeah,
I'm happy with it. I'm happy with it enough at this
for the
point.
time being. I mean, not maybe not any on the world currently, but I had a question actually because speaking about the
Yes.
government for a little bit. Um,
What about
so I understand that everywhere in the country that we're dealing with homeless problem, a homelessness issue, and it's not the homeless people that are the issue. It's some of the things that are happening in their lives, but it's also the criminals that are taking advantage of situations. How are things for you in regards to the homeless population where you live in the Bay Area?
oh, oh my goodness. Well, this is a very it's a very long subject. We can be here for hours discussing this subject. And the thing is that I don't know what's been happening. Well, here, let me kind of backtrack before I answer even this question.
Sure, go for it.
And actually, it really kind of does tie back down to the election that just happened. California is a very liberal state. As
Right.
everyone,
Yeah, everybody knows, right?
always voted blue and everything. But there has been a very stronger rise and more conservative ideas.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see California being like Texas anytime soon. But what that means is that now the homelessness problem is finally being tackled.
I got
You
you.
know,
I understand. Yeah.
a lot of cities, a lot of people, a lot of counties have really started to realize, that yes, this is a major issue, and we have to take care of it. And so a lot of these places, a lot of these homeless encampments are literally being burned down. Law enforcement is telling them to move, so it's starting to get
Right.
better. But we still have a very long way to go because just the other day I was going down the freeway and I can see the tents in like by marshes and ponds, in areas that are really really secluded. So they're starting to hide, but so it's starting to go down. It's not as bad as it used to be, but we still have a long way to go for sure.
And that's good to see that, or to hear that some of the things that are happening. I mean, that'd be pretty rough, for an example, if you were that homeless person and, you knew that you had nowhere to go, but your place was getting burned down, your possessions were getting destroyed. I'm sure that would definitely not, in my mind, considered to be or be considered to be a solution in any regard. But I can definitely see the necessity of, if you're not supposed to be here and if you're breaking the law or if you're doing something wrong, then there definitely needs to be something happening.
Yeah, and not only that, I mean California, at least we Californians, we try to be very generous, with the people who are or are less fortunate than us. But it's gotten to the point that a lot of these homeless people are really well taken care of. To the point that to the point that they can be a complete, contributing member to society, even if they're working a simple 9 to 5, at a small retail shop. But since there's so many handouts, you'll hear that word a lot.
I was gonna, yeah, that's specifically what I wanted to ask you about. What kind of benefits or handouts do we'll say the unhoused population or the homeless population, what do they receive from the state of California?
Oh, I mean, as well,
A lot?
Well, it can go. So, a lot of these, what do they call it? Community centers. They give a lot of free food. So they get a lot of food. In Christmas, specifically, they get a lot of free clothes. They get electronics. They get phones. They get shoes. They get everything. They really do. Except really really big stuff like cars and houses.
Well, right. Yeah. Okay.
Although, with that being said, some places are transforming, like open plots and lands for homeless housing, where they are giving a house, a quote unquote a house. It's like a tiny little bungalow, really.
Right, and I've seen some things online, and that does seem like it's becoming more popular to kind of like buy these places, become a corporation, and there's different laws. I'm not sure how it is for California, and then again, it has to be like zoned for residential but bought by a corporation, which actually is kind of like the problem to begin with. But if you're doing it to like buy these places, prop up some homeless people so that they have a place to go, I can understand that's a more benevolent goal.
Yeah, and then on the other hand, at least in San Francisco, what they were doing is that fentanyl has been a really huge problem in San Francisco, and
Hmm.
instead of and so if years passed, and the city, instead of trying to control the fentanyl issue, they're giving handouts, like meaning that they're actually giving people fentanyl consciously. So sometimes you would see lines in certain dispensaries when people pick up their narcotics and just go light up somewhere else.
Is the advent to like help them wean off of it or prevent withdrawal symptoms?
I think is because they want to get down the crime rate about these people trying to get their hands on fentanyl. So instead of dealing with the crime,
It's
they go to the
that bad out there. It's
yeah,
that bad.
yeah,
They'd rather give them the fentanyl than have them rob houses to get money for it.
exactly. Hmm.
Wow.
They'd
Okay.
rather give them their advice instead of dealing with the issue. So again, that's why I was saying that there's this conservative mentality now. They're like, this is like enough. This is
Yeah.
becoming a dystopian. This is dystopia. Like this is not normal.
No, that's pretty bad. That's pretty bad. I'm not gonna lie. That's. I mean, we have a problem here, but it's certainly not to the extent of the government is giving them free drugs so they don't rob people for them instead. We're
And
not there.
exactly. I mean, on one hand, it keeps them down. They're not acting up on normal
I
people,
bet.
but you still see them light up. I still see them. I mean, I was in San Francisco not too long ago, going to the opera, and I'm like seeing people with the needles, in plain
Yeah,
daylight.
just out and about.
Like yeah, just like if they were having like lunch or something. So again, San Francisco is very dystopian. But then, actually, what you said about New York, what I loved about New York is that at least in the city, everything is mixing with each other. You know,
Oh, for
I,
sure. Yeah.
everybody's mixed with each other. But then when I went to San Francisco, I'm like, there's this clear division between the classes in San Francisco.
Yeah. I
You know,
mean, there's certainly. I mean, I'm sure this is in a lot of other places, but they call them like the suits. Any person basically wearing a suit in New York City, people think they're kind of douchey, and that's kind of like that's part of the class distinction. But
yeah,
I can't say that I haven't seen people that were dressed up real nice talking to people that were not dressed up real nice, and the what did somebody say
sure.
one time? If I could, if, I won't repeat the quote. I can't say it perfectly, but it's basically if you talk when you spit, don't talk to people you don't like. And it's like, oh, okay, that's interesting. I think
Yeah.
that pretty close to what it was. I'll say that's pretty close to what the quote was. But it's basically to say that like if you really don't like somebody, then like don't go out of your way to make it like worse for them. So to have a consideration if it's like oh I'm a multimillionaire and this person's homeless, it's not because they're like a bad person per se maybe if you don't know their situation.
Hmm.
So, and that's what I kind of try to encourage. And yeah, I can understand what you're saying about how there's a difference in a change in how people are considering these homeless people and what they're
Yeah.
doing. And yeah, it's pretty bad out there. Through what you said already, I can understand that that's pretty rough.
It
Um,
is, and some of these men, specifically men, because I mean, it always seems to be men. That's they're
mhm.
more homeless. I see more homeless men than women.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, and
I think that's a real statistic. We'll find a
yeah,
number on that too.
yeah, and even the thing is, when we see these men, John, they are clean. They look healthy. They look strong, and they're still asking for money on the side of the freeway.
Yeah.
So it's just a lot of problems, and hopefully in the future, this will just not be anymore. You know.
Well, we just have to. Some of the things that I've understood so far is that there's an order of operations to things, and if you want to solve the homeless problem by just getting rid of the homeless people and putting them in houses, then they're probably not going to treat. And we just had a case. Well, we had posted a case study on one of the videos we had made more recently. I had a social worker come on, and he was very, very enthralled, or he was very considerate towards these homeless people or unhoused people, as he said.
Hmm.
And the case study basically goes over this one individual, and there's a lot of they're trying to keep a lot of information hidden for the sake of security. So for
Yeah.
this individual, basically, they're trying to get them into housing, or they're trying to like set them up for a good life, and they're ruining it, or they're nitpicking at funny like small things that are not important that
Yeah.
should not dissuade you from not having to live on the street anymore. right? But
Mm-hmm.
that's not what the problem was. The problem wasn't that they couldn't just get their own house to live in. It's that there was some underlying cause that was the, after that's solved, then they can feel like they're a portion of, society again. They've regained the humanity. They can go on and live their life as, most of us do. And so that's the issue, is that, and the I can't even say it's a band-aid to hand out free fentanyl. That is the craziest thing I've heard all day. And I'm very happy to have had you on now to have a first-hand account from things like that. Because
Yeah.
that is just not information that's necessary. Even if I saw that online, I'm not going to say that I would have believed that, if I'm honest with you. So that's a difficult thing to kind of
Yeah.
rationalize and see that, if it's really, if that's to the extent that things have gotten so bad that they're just like, okay, please stop robbing places for fentanyl. We're just going to give you the fentanyl. Whew. What do you even do from there?
I know. No, it's getting dystopian. Yeah, no,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
and I think, like, kind of back what you said about an underlying issue, at least in California, people who have like, say, a criminal record for any reason,
Sure.
it was very hard for them to get employment, but now a lot of companies, because when I apply for jobs, a lot of companies, they give this disclaimer, saying that even though, if you, not verbatim, but like, if
Yeah.
you do have a criminal record, still apply and it will not affect your employment status. And so it's another way of trying to solve this issue, because some people, let's say they were selling fentanyl and they were homeless, but now they are a contributing member of society,
Right.
because these kind of laws have been in place for decades. These companies are trying to just kind of find a way around them, and give people a chance,
And
to come back.
I'm sure you agree with this, but do you believe that if somebody is willing, after they've gone through all of their criminal record, their criminal past, if somebody is willing to reintegrate themselves into society, get a job, change the way that they are, and become a functioning member of society, don't you think they deserve to do that, or at least try to?
At least try to, and only at the end, with the
After
end result.
treatment, after serious consideration, after life changing upheavals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, only at the end. We can only conclude at the end, because there have been cases that these people have gone through treatment, rehab, and everything, but they still, go back into prison, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So we have to wait until the end to see how they were able to contribute some way or another.
You ever work in a restaurant, Manuel?
I've worked at Starbucks, so I kind of know what it is about.
That anybody who's watching, anybody who's listening that's worked in a restaurant, I guarantee. I can't truly guarantee, but I can just about guarantee that there's somebody who is an ex-con that you're working with. And I used to work at a couple different places, and yeah, it's like a very linear path of progression for people that are coming out of jail or any prison to get these types of jobs in the back of house where they can just cook, keep their heads down, and not get into trouble. You know, but there's so many different people. There was somebody I used to work with. He was a born again Christian. He was trying to get me to convert to Christianity while we were working, and it was the first time I ever met this guy. But he turned his life around in jail after whatever he did. I didn't
Sure.
really worry about that. There was like these two people. The one guy was his uncle, and he was in jail, and then the other guy, he was younger. I'm not giving names, but he was in jail as well for selling drugs like marijuana and stuff
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that. But he got out again and got a job back at the same place until he did the same thing again and got locked up again. So, and that's just like, if they're trying at the very least, yeah, they might make mistakes, but if they're trying,
Mm-hmm.
they should be given that opportunity.
Yeah. No, no, no. That's what I agree. I think everybody should be given, a shot, to prove themselves.
Right,
Yeah.
right. I agree with that. Even if you have messed up, there's repercussions that you faced, I'm sure. But I try to take everybody for what they, how they present themselves to me. Not from what I've heard about them, from what I know what they've done. But it's like everybody has their own perception of you in their mind, right? Like if you walk past somebody and you say, "Hey, buddy, your shoe's untied." "Oh, thank you." And they tie their shoe. They're gonna have a positive perception of you. You might be a mass serial killer and they have no idea, but your perception to them is gonna be positive because of that first interaction, alone.
Yeah. No, no, no. And actually, you know what? Speaking of what you said about the restaurants, since I did work at Starbucks, we did have someone actually who had a criminal record.
Yeah,
It was like with problems with alcoholism or whatnot. I don't remember exactly what. But the point is that at that point that their record had been already tainted, and
right.
he was given a fair shot, to work with us. But towards the end, to keep it short, it just wasn't working out. That I had to quit because I was
Oh,
getting,
with this
worried.
individual?
Yeah, yeah. I was getting kind of worried with for my sake. It's a long story.
That's fair
So
enough.
yeah, so he just came to mind. He just came to mind randomly.
That's yeah, but you know what? The best to those people. If they cause problems, yeah, I mean, everybody
Yeah,
can cause problems. Everybody has the capacity to do harm.
yeah,
It's about how if you're still perpetuating that harm and if you're still hurting people. So I can
yeah.
understand that. Yeah. Um, yeah, it's definitely about trying to just have more consideration for these people, and that's something that we've been struggling with. I feel like as a nation, like overall, and I'm sure on like a global level, we can say that there's less consideration for people. But I haven't been all over the world. I'd like to, but I haven't been. Another question for you, I suppose.
Sure.
I mean, I kind of already had said something like this. Actually, I'll just ask you this. Have you
Mhm.
been where have you been in the world? Where have you traveled to so far?
Yeah, no. So it's like you. Oh my goodness, this is such a complicated question. Here, I'll
Really?
say this. Yeah, I'll say this. It's a very complicated thing for me. So at least here in California, where I
Okay.
live. So I live in the South Bay. So San Jose is my major city. That's the
Hmm.
major city down here for us. And where I live, I'm able to get to San Francisco like in an hour. I'm able to get to Berkeley in an hour. Or Santa Cruz also in an hour. Famous city for surfing, really great in
Nice.
summer.
Yeah. Oh,
So
I've heard no Santa Cruz.
yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. And so I take these little what I call micro vacations where I leave very early
Hmm.
and I just spend all day in this one city. I get lost. I go into random
I've
places.
always wanted to do that. Like
Yeah, it's so much fun. Yeah, it's like I sometimes discover the most obscure places that you would never think.
like
You
restaurants or well,
rest,
tell me about some of them because I'm sure you have a great experience.
no, of course, yeah, no. Actually, the most recent one. I mean, this is just the most random thing. So I was in San Francisco, and I was in the financial district because I mean I've never really been to the financial district because I have no reason to go.
Sure.
So I park and I'm just walking up and down the street and I find this like little shop. And I go inside, and it's kind of like this Scottish shop, meaning that they have kilts and they have the whole
Oh yeah.
gear, and it's the perfect a lot of imports from Scotland.
That seems pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and in the back they have uh, blankets, like throw blankets, and they're made in Scotland, 100% lamb's wool, dry clean only. And I'm like, this is incredible. Like, I would have never have seen this object. And it's funny
Right.
because I didn't purchase it the moment that I was there, but I couldn't keep my mind off it. And this was a Sunday, and I was like, you know what? It's Monday. I have nothing to do. Let's go back up to the city and go get the throw blanket.
Really? It was on your mind that much? That is
It's a
crazy.
it's beautiful. It's 100% wool. Like I said, it has this beautiful sheen. It's really warm. I loved it. So
I did get to go to Scotland actually about 6 years
really,
ago. Oh yeah, it was incredible. I loved one of my favorite countries to go to. If I think so, how many different countries have you been to?
well, that's what I was going to get to. So
Sure, yeah,
so I was planning a trip to Paris.
yeah. Ooh,
I was planning a trip for 10 days to Paris and Versailles. And everything was ready. Airbnb, plane ticket, money, everything. Just
yeah.
absolutely everything was ready.
What happened? What happened?
But the pandemic happened.
Oh, are you kidding me? You were gonna go right before COVID? That sucks.
But that's not the kicker. The thing was that I was like, okay, I'll try to be very careful. I'll do everything.
You were
I'll
still
try.
going to go.
I was still going to go. This was just like at the beginning of the pandemic, mind you.
What was the month?
And
What was the month?
I think it was in March. I was going to
Oh,
go
so
in
it was
March.
like right in the beginning then.
Yeah. And then I was like that's what I was saying. I was like, okay, I'll just be careful, wash my hands, yada yada yada.
Yeah, yeah.
But then they said, oh, France is closing its borders, and I'm like,
No, no.
no,
To anybody
okay,
but me,
so
right?
yeah, so now I have to contact everyone to get refunded because I'm like, yeah, I cannot like enter the country anymore. So goodbye.
Yeah.
So I would have spent 10 days in Versailles in Paris.
You were
Gosh.
gonna go with friends as well, or no?
No, I was gonna do a solo travel and just kind of experience the culture because I love the French culture. I mean, I've loved it for the entire, for my entire life, and that's like another conversation
Ha-
for another time.
no, that's totally fine. Well, actually, we could talk about that a little bit. Have you ever been to Canada?
No, I've never been, and I've actually wanted to go.
I went to Montreal 2 years ago, and that's French Canada, which more people speak French than they speak English up there. I had a couple conversations with people. Well, I thought I had conversations with people. I just spoke, and they didn't speak any English or Spanish, so I couldn't really have a conversation with them. There was a couple actually. Sorry to cut your story out. I just wanted to say this quick, but
That's okay.
I went to this one mall, and there was this guy who he's a French speaker, and I said, "Hey man, how are you? Yada yada, whatever." He was like, "I don't know any French," so he was saying, whatever, I'm sure he was saying, "Hey, I actually can't understand a word you're saying, stupid
Uh-huh.
American," and I was like, "Oh, okay." I was like, then I spoke to him in Spanish, like, habla español, usted? And he's like, he looked at me like no different, and I was just like, well, I'm gonna remember this for the rest of my life. And he obviously like, still, I shook his hand. I think I like gave him a dollar coin and told him to throw it in the fountain, and he just like looked at me like, what the hell?
You're not the only one because I've met people from Canada,
Yeah,
and they always say the most odd things about people from Montreal. They always
yeah.
and I'm like, is it really that strange in Montreal? Like
It
now I have,
is. I'm not gonna lie. And if anybody from Montreal's watching, yeah, you guys are kind of wild up there. Like as opposed to the rest of Canada or like larger portions or different
yeah,
portions, I'll say, of
yeah,
Canada. Obviously, as a New Yorker, I mean, Canada. We have a lot of people from Canada all the time in this state.
uh,
It borders the country.
yeah,
So
yeah.
anyway, but I went to where was it? Where did I drive through? Not Ottawa. I think it was Ottawa, but I mean, it doesn't really matter. And like just the conversations that I was having with people from like that farther outside or like closer to the United States and like the English that they would speak and it's like is this even the same country anymore? Like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
like these people did not speak English, could not understand me, and we're in Canada. I'm just in a city, and I'm thinking, what is like wrong like with these people, or what's wrong with me? I shouldn't have even come here. And then I go a couple hours closer to the border, and people are like, "Hey, dude, what's up?" And it's like, "What's up, bro?
You,
How are you?" "Oh, I'm chilling,
you
man."
know,
Like, what do you mean? What do you mean?
and that's the thing. I have the same feeling because with countries,
Mm,
there's certain countries that I still don't understand. Meaning, like Canada, like you have this. There's so many different cultures in Canada. There's so many.
mm-hmm.
There's two languages in Canada. So
Yeah.
it's kind of I don't understand Canada. That's why I want to go to Canada to understand better what Canada is.
I would
You know.
definitely go. Yeah, I would go to Canada again. I had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun up there.
No, I bet. And I mean, and the actually, funny enough, a couple of years ago, so I love maple syrup. Finally,
Oh yeah.
maple syrup is delicious, and and I came to know how some people in Vermont,
Hmm.
Vermont being like the leading state of maple syrup production,
Oh yeah.
was illegally tapping into the Canadian trees. So
Oh,
I
that's
came,
whew, start a
so
war
I
like
came to,
that.
yeah, so I came to find out that they are, so there's kind of like this I don't even know what to call it, like this illegal import of Canadian maple syrup into the Americas. Like so it's kind of
They're
like,
smuggling the syrup over the border.
yeah, they're smuggling
Oh my god.
allegedly, but I'm like I believe this. I mean,
Yeah.
this is hilarious.
Yeah. Why not? Right? I don't know. Like I could see that being like a serious thing and people having like forks and pitch or like torches and pitchforks over it. I was actually going to ask you because obviously, well, I don't know about obviously, but
Mhm.
being from California, where's your family from?
Yeah, so it's a hard question because if you
Oh,
would look, I know I always give complicated answers.
no,
So
no,
we're all
this is a podcast. This is a place for it, man.
so we're all from Guadalajara. So this is the place that is famous for its mariachi. The state of tequila is also there. Is it a state or city? Anyways, so it's kind of like this geographical location where mariachi and tequila is known for.
Oh, very nice.
So yeah, so it's very heavily in the arts. It's very traditional. And funny enough, a lot of people don't know this about Guadalajara, Jalisco specifically. The state is Jalisco.
Yep.
It was
Okay.
one of the very last places that Spain let go of. So there's a much more heavier Spanish influence there and in Mexico City than in other, rural parts of Mexico.
That's
So
very interesting.
so with that being said, um, in my family on my mom's side, everybody is like white. Like everybody has white skin. Like they're
Yeah,
European. But then on my dad's side, everybody's like more on the dark side. So when
that's
people,
very interesting.
yeah, so it's like more like native Mexicans, dark skin, dark hair. I mean, my cousin once removed, he was born a full ginger. Like he has
Really,
complete, yeah,
really.
he has
Is he from Mexico as
completely.
well? Like he lived in Mexico?
No. They live here. They're fully American,
Oh, okay.
but he was born with a full red hair, and it's funny because my grandfather, my great grandfather
Hmm.
on my mom's side, apparently he also was a ginger with green eyes.
Oh,
So
wow,
now,
that's very rare.
yeah, so I came to kind of know that they immigrated,
Hmm.
and that's all I know. I'm like, but did they immigrate from like the UK? I mean, most likely Spain, but
Right.
like
Hold
where
on.
did my family really begin in Europe?
Red
You
hair.
know,
I can't say that comes from anywhere else beside. Well, I can't say because I'm not a genealogist, but I'm Irish, and I have a.
Mhm.
We have lots of red hair. I mean, I have red
Yeah,
hair in my in my hair because of it.
sure, yeah.
But my uncle John, he's not watching, but if he's watching, what's up, Uncle John? I'm an Uncle John myself now, actually, because my sister had a kid, so I'm an Uncle John myself. It's
Oh,
hilarious.
nice.
I love her,
Yeah,
and she's so adorable. But
cute.
oh, what was I saying? Oh yeah, he's
So you,
ginger. Like he's got more freckles than there are stars in the sky. He's redhead like all the way, like ginger beard. He is orange, straight orange on his face when he grows a beard.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, my grandfather's name is. I mean, I'll say Papa if you're watching. I know he's not watching either, but his name is John Patrick Conley. That's a very Irish name.
Really?
Yeah, so we're pretty Irish, and yeah. But yeah, so I mean, I can't think of any other places on the planet that red hair usually comes from.
Yeah,
Um,
no. That's the thing. It's kind of when people ask me, "Oh, where your family's from?" The simple answer is, "Yeah, everyone's from Mexico." But the more complicated answer is, "I don't know. I
yeah,
don't know."
I feel like that's a lot of the same for people. So how long has your family been in the United States? Like, if you were a generation, you're like a third or a fourth generation American.
This is a complicated question too
Oh,
because,
wow, you're a very complicated man, Manuel.
well, well, the thing is, my grandparents, they were actually coming back. They were going back and forth between the United States and Mexico in like the 60s and 70s.
Hmm.
So um, ideally, and kind of like a little bit of backstory,
Go
if
for it.
my grandfather would have gotten all of my aunts and my mom's adoption papers, I would have been born in this country
Oh,
because it was.
you weren't born in the United States.
No. I was born in Mexico, and I was brought to the U.S. in when I was like age 4.
Oh, that's
We
pretty cool.
arrived. Yeah, we actually arrived on the 20th of November, 2000. So this 20th, we're going to be living officially like 24 years.
Wow, congratulations to you guys.
Thank you.
Welcome to the United States. Well, I mean, I was pretty much born a year before that, so what's the
Yeah,
difference?
yeah. Yeah, and the thing is that my cousins, most of them have been born here, but I was the very one of the very unlucky few that
Oh,
was that I wasn't born here.
what kind of struggles has that brought to you?
So well, actually, I don't know. I mean, so long story short, I had to wait in my educational journey. I couldn't go to college immediately because I didn't have any legal status.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I had to wait, I think, like 5 years because, long story short, the U.S. government wanted to make sure that I wasn't a criminal and I wasn't going to cause any
Yeah,
kind of, before applying for any kind of legal status.
sure. Yeah, fair
So
enough, I
life,
suppose.
so life for me has been kind of behind, you know, and
Yeah.
so that's why we didn't do a lot of travel because, unfortunately, at least in California, I don't think it's as strong anymore. But there was this really strong mentality that if you were to travel, let's say outside of California into Nevada or Arizona, you
Hmm.
would be immediately deported. So there
Yeah, I
was.
could. So
Yeah.
you've obviously dealt with a lot of fear around that then as a younger individual. Traveling was certainly not something you were comfortable doing if, that's a worry that you guys would had.
Not exactly, because in the areas that we spent a lot of areas, a lot of time in the city of Palo Alto, which is a major city here,
Mm-hmm.
and it's Palo Alto. I think it's like 90% ethnically white. So we
For a
didn't
place
have,
called Palo Alto.
yeah, yeah. So we
Great.
didn't have this huge issue. We didn't have this fear because we knew that ICE or law enforcement wasn't actively looking.
Mm-hmm.
For people that didn't have any legal status. Now, people in more rural areas or even Los Angeles, they would have to worry more. So it was a little bit easier for us, but we still had those fears. Yeah, no, we still have them.
Yeah, I mean, see, that's interesting, and that's something I don't want. I hope this doesn't come out in a bad way, but that's something. It's interesting to hear your experience with that.
Yeah.
Um, see, obviously, from somebody like on the opposite side of the country, we
Uh-huh.
have we hear a lot about, oh, there's illegal immigration, or there's people that are breaking the law in whatever regard, and
Mhm.
they're an illegal immigrant. But that we're not affected by things like that. If there's
Yeah.
somebody who's an illegal immigrant, they're most likely somebody from Canada before there's somebody from Mexico from us. Or
Hmm.
but and here's the biggest disconnect for a lot of people. It's that more recently, within the last, we'll say 3 to 4 years, the people that
Uh,
have been illegally immigrating from Mexico are not Mexicans. They are from
that's
any other
true.
part of the world.
Hmm.
They're,
Hmm.
and majority of the time they're either, some of them are South Americans, but majority of
Hmm.
the time they're either Chinese they found or African, which is crazy. And obviously Africa is a gigantic continent, so we're not saying strictly
Hmm.
what countries.
Hmm.
But it's interesting because I don't really have a lot of experience with illegal immigration from somebody who lives in New York. I just hear a lot about it, and like online or on the
Hmm.
news in any regard. I just want to know from somebody who's had experience with it. Like I said, I don't mean to put you in a bad light, but somebody who's had experience with that. What are some of the things that are not being told that should be?
Yeah, no. You know, how- I mean, maybe it is an open secret. It is, no, it's not even it's not, I don't even think
Not
it is.
really a secret anymore. I know what you mean, but yeah.
I know it's an open secret, but something is that, a lot of these immigrants, they, especially if they're brand new to this country, like you can tell when they're brand new, like when they just immigrated. They take, like you said, very similar to the people with criminal records. They stay in the back of, they work in the back of the restaurant.
Right, right,
They work jobs that they're not being put into the spotlight. So what happens is that you start seeing this little clear division between classes again,
right,
where you have people in something, and it's because not only because they don't have any legal status, but sometimes they don't even speak English that well. So there's this
right.
language, there's this cultural barrier. So it's not being talked about enough that these people are doing hard labor, because they are doing very hard labor sometimes, and I
Right.
don't think they're being shown a little bit more appreciation, because people, when people are used to just taking and taking and taking, they don't really kind of step back,
So,
and you
what are some of the fears that you could say would muster when, say, Donald Trump gets into the White House with his plan to deport a large portion of our workforce, whether they be illegal immigrants or not? What do you think the result of that's going to be? If that does come to happen, as he says that that's what he wants, we'll see if that's what happens. But what do you think would happen?
Well, it's funny because at least within the Hispanic community, specifically the Mexican community, I'm not speaking like for Guatemalans or
Mm-hmm.
Salvador or any other Latin
Sure.
American country. There has been this more, how should I say this? The policies that the Republican Party has been putting in place actually are much closer to Mexican mentality. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
so we Mexicans actually are not as afraid as somebody might read on the news. Because because I don't know. Again, the mentality of perhaps more conservative values are more found in Mexico than in the United States.
I think similar conservative values can be found in the United States and Mexico. I could agree with that.
Yeah.
Um, I don't want to speak about like numbers through the polling of
Yeah.
how the last election went to say like what demographic supports who, but I think
But
yeah,
one thing is very clear, at least, well, at least within all Hispanic, and I think all Hispanics and Latinos, we all agree that, you know, we've come to realize that if we're bringing you as a family member and you're not, and you're just causing trouble in this country, then we all agree that you really shouldn't be in this country.
fair enough. Yeah,
It sounds harsh, but you have to grapple with reality that because sometimes, these families are spending thousands of dollars, to come to this country. For
right.
you just mess it up, you probably just don't, you're not appreciating the efforts that we've
And
mustered to bring
I'll
you here.
share something with you. So I'm not necessarily somebody who is. I can't say I'm very like pro like deportation. I think
Yeah,
there's better ways about things, but I am somebody who says if you got into this country illegally, that is against the law, and you don't get you don't get some special whatever just because if you come over and you get a job, you start paying taxes. Sure, there should be some type of path to citizenship for you,
of course. Yeah.
but I do, and this is where there's a gigantic divide between the rhetoric that's used in the like left and right. I think
Yeah.
it should be easier to get into this country legally, but more difficult to get into this country illegally. And I think that's a sentiment a lot of people can agree with. I
No, and
think, yeah,
that's exactly what I've been saying. Yeah, no, there's this because we Mexicans, again, I'm just speaking for Mexicans.
yeah,
We
sure,
we
yeah,
Mexicans,
that's fine, that's okay.
we're tired of like, it being this hard that we're spending all this time, years and generations, to not have any kind of legal status.
Right,
So that's why we're all saying make it illegal. Sorry, not make it illegal. Make it more difficult to come illegally and make it easier for a legal, path to citizenship. Like my aunt,
right.
she's been here for like 17 years and she doesn't have any status, but she's made her life here. She has worked, she pays taxes, she's done all of this.
Yeah, yeah,
So
basically integrated into society and productive member. And I can't, I'm not gonna say like, oh, people like that shouldn't be in this country.
yeah,
If there was a better option 17 years ago for them to integrate through legal means or through whatever
yeah,
other means, that's a shame it was not offered to them. But that doesn't mean that they need to be or what's the word? Yeah, well, basically expatriated. But if they're not
yeah,
citizens, they're not really expatriated.
yeah,
But basically exiled from this country simply because of yes, and that's where the divide is drawn because it's a very difficult and nuanced issue to say, okay, the people that have been here for like so long and they built their lives here and they paid taxes and they paid into
yeah,
retirements or whatever else, do they deserve to be here? Personally, I do believe that those people deserve to be here. However, as the law stands, legally they are at risk. So
yeah.
it becomes an issue of do we allow these people to stay? Personally, I think if they have their life here, then yes, but through this next administration, it's most likely that there's not going to be another avenue of citizenship available.
It's a very complicated subject.
Right.
It's not. I don't think this administration, maybe not the next, maybe who even knows the third one after this one can fix it. It'll take decades for this to be fixed for
It will.
sure.
It'll be. You know what? I don't mean to expose any information you don't want to be shared, but
No, it's
I don't
fine.
know how old you are, but I'm 24 myself. I'll be 25 at the end of this month, and I know that I probably will be 40 by the time anything reasonably becomes successful.
It's fine. No, I'm 28, and I really like yourself. I don't think it's gonna be fixed within the next year or two. I really don't.
Yeah, yeah. It's
It's a
only 6 months away or whatever.
So yeah, it's very complicated subject. So yeah, so there has been this shift, that we're, at least Mexicans, are just tired. We want something in return. And
Yeah.
because most of us have proven ourselves, like, to be part of this country. Yeah,
And that's yeah, because a lot of people could agree with that. And just as well, I think we will see. We'll see once. It'll be a bad thing to say wait and see for, but once there's a mass deportation, which I'm sure there will be, and there's a lot of opportunities that are vacant because of people not working those lower income jobs or those messier jobs, and not everybody wants to work. So I don't think we're going to be economically satiated because of that. I don't think we're going to be doing better from a mass deportation. We could lose like estimations say anywhere between 7 to 9% of our workforce. That's I don't think that's a good thing simply because these people, like, yes, are they illegal immigrants? 100%. Should they have gotten into this country through legal means? Yes. Was that necessarily available at the time? Most likely no. Does that mean that they should get out of this country now? It's a difficult answer, or a question to answer.
And I personally think it will never happen, a mass deportation, just because this country, at least it has shown me that it's very generous. This country, for me, has been very forgiving.
Oh yeah.
So
I mean,
because of that, it's been kind of like a double-edged sword. That it's so forgiving that sometimes people abuse it.
yeah,
Abuse
it's
the generosity. Because even I was crossed illegally. For Christ's sakes, I was crossed with a fake ID with my grandmother, who is a citizen.
right.
And we were forgiven.
And that's difficult to say that you are responsible for that, because really you're
Yeah.
not.
No, 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 no.
I mean, I don't mean to put any, to say any negative connotation towards you and your family, but in a certain sense, you were smuggled into this country against your will. It's just not a bad place to be, is the thing,
Dude, it took me a month to realize that I wasn't in the same country.
Oh, man. You're just like, the trees are way different here, and the sky is, I don't know. I've been to Mexico once I think I was in 7th grade, so I was like 12 or 13.
Oh yeah, where did you go?
Where did we go? I can't quite remember, honestly. No, I can't. I don't think. No, that wasn't it. Went to Dominican Republic as well, and we went to where was it? Is Punta Cana Dominican Republic, or is that? That's not Mexico, right?
It's somewhere in Latin America. That's all I can say.
So Punta Cana was Dominican Republic, I'm pretty sure. I can't remember. That was over 12 years ago. That was over 12 years ago that I went to Mexico. Oh, I mean, I sidetracked for a second, but I was gonna name all the other countries I had been to, but I mean, it's not really that important now.
No.
Well, so when I was in 12th grade, I graduated and I went to United Kingdom. I went to Ireland, Northern Ireland, Scotland, and England for about 2 weeks. It was great. I had just graduated, so all the chaperones could not tell me anything. They were like, "Oh, you can only have one drink with dinner under supervision," and I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to the, whatever bar I want to, basically, because I can buy drinks myself at 18 years old over there." You know, so and there's nothing they could do. I was already graduated too, so there's nothing they can do. So,
no, look, I'm jealous of you because.
Oh, don't be jealous of me. I got plenty of things to not be jealous about.
No, I mean in terms of travel, because even though I have loved French culture for as long as I have, English culture specifically, I have loved as well.
What about because I'll tell you a little bit about English culture. I was disappointed.
Okay, well,
the lack thereof, I should say. Any of my English watchers today.
I really admire English culture. I really do. So for me, I have certain countries that I really admire their culture and I really love them. Scottish, specifically in Scotland, I love the nature, how lush Scotland is.
Yeah.
Like the more kind of like rustic kind of feel that I think Scotland, has. I really adore that from Scotland versus England's more, kind of like gonna get go mentality. And then Ireland, I adore Ireland for just how beautiful it is.
Have you ever been to Ireland? Because I was going to say, and mind you, I'm starting wars in other countries at this point with what I'm saying here. But when I went to Ireland, I found that Ireland was the most beautiful country outside of the United States I've ever been to. And then immediately I went to Northern Ireland, which is like a quarter of the size, and then I went to Scotland, which I thought was beautiful. But I went to somewhere called Giant's Causeway in Ireland. It is it's a gigantic cliffside that drops off and goes out into the Pacific Ocean. It is probably the most beautiful place I've had the opportunity of experiencing.
I think I know exactly what you're talking about. I think I've seen
it has the black basalt rocks that are all hexagonal, so they fit together perfectly.
It's beautiful.
All around it's so beautiful. It was so beautiful.
The British Isles for me are so beautiful. But to go back to your question about English culture, well, first of all, I have to come to realize that a lot of the ideas from the United States, did originate from England. I mean, all
yes,
were English. But then, just As for lack of better terms, I've seen always England as a magical place. You know, a lot of the fairy tales. So, like, I had this notion as a kid that if I were to go to England, I would see Hansel and Gretel. I would see
Yeah.
the Three Little Pigs. Because so England for me was this very magical place, and then I was kind of obsessed with the royal family for a little bit. You know, and they've kept that history alive. You know, whether you
Yeah.
like it or not. And
I
not
I'm
not just
I think they should advocate. Personally, I think the days of monarchies are long behind us as human culture, but that's just my personal opinion.
That's fun. Tell that to Turkmenistan. Is it Turkmenistan?
Are they absolute monarchy in Turkmenistan?
I think so. I
I'll
think
say it's
so.
the Saudi princes as well. Hey, you guys should abdicate. They're gonna probably, I don't think they'd like to hear from me, but whatever. Nothing
Exactly.
against the
And then,
Saudi princes.
and you know what? And I'll say this right now, whoever is listening, I do not understand the slander for English cuisine. English
Then
cuisine
you've
sometimes
never tried it. That's why. It's because you've never tried it, and it
no
is
no
trash. I'm here to
no.
tell you. I'm here to tell you with my firsthand primary source. I'm a reasonable man, but I cannot say that anything I ate while I was in England was good food. I'll say that
Oh my
again.
oh my
If you
god.
can't season something with anything better than salt, you don't deserve to call yourself a restaurant. That's what I'm saying, straight up and down. We had fish and chips that tasted like frozen, and the only thing they had on the table was salt and vinegar. Like a vinegar out of like a little thing, and we're thinking, well, how about some pepper? And they're like, oh, it'd be too spicy. We're like, what do you mean too spicy? It's pepper. Black pepper and salt, like you're acting like we're aliens from another galaxy. Like what the hell? No, British cuisine is trash. You want to tell me that bland, mushy peas is one of your favorite foods? Jeez. And
Okay.
yeah.
Well, I seem I've pushed a button
No,
here.
yeah, dude, we were so disappointed. I'm not even gonna lie to you. We were super disappointed. They were going, dude, because you got to remember, Manuel, man, we were going on and on about like, oh, we got to try all the specific beers and foods of every country, and we got to try the London Pride, which is the beer of England, and it was piss water. We were like, wow, this is the worst one. England was our last country before we went home. So all this hype that's getting built around London and England, and we're like, oh, this is so great. We're finally going to go to England. I can't believe it, yada, yada. We went there on the 4th of July. We tried some food. It was trash. We were like, wow, I want to go back to that shitty piece of pizza I had in Ireland in the countryside when the guy didn't even speak English. It is. I got nothing but slander for English food. I'm here to say it one more time. Nothing
Okay.
but.
Well.
so, so you're not. I'm telling you, man.
Okay.
Yep.
Well.
Yep. That's
Geez,
what's up.
have an uphill battle here.
Yeah.
On my
Good luck,
last.
man.
No, and I say this because look, granted enough, I really do love English tea culture. I really do. Like high tea and afternoon tea. I really do love
Yeah.
it.
We didn't try the tea over there. I'm not gonna lie.
You know,
Yeah.
so
We had the hotel tea.
so I started to see that. This is just my opinion. That I think that English food is not as bad as it is made out to be. It is
Sure.
not as bad. Okay, I know
Sure.
there's those questionable dishes like haggis and the
Haggis
cheese.
is a Scottish dish, but yes, that's also pretty gross.
It's in the British Isles.
Yeah, United Kingdom, sure.
But like cottage pie, like that shit is good. Like
Yeah.
that is like right now it's raining in California, right?
Mhm.
And I'm like tempted to go out and get stuff to actually make cottage or shepherd's pie today. No.
So every Tuesday, my sister and her husband and her daughter, they come over for dinner. And last Tuesday, I made shepherd's pie for everybody. And
Yes, I saw the TikTok video. It looked
oh
delicious.
yeah, I totally forgot. Yeah, that's right.
It looked delicious.
It
So
was fantastic.
yeah, and and I don't know. And here's something controversial. And I know a lot of people. If you're French, I'm gonna get hate for this.
Let's
But
hear
I
it.
I really do think that the dairy products from England are vastly superior to the ones in France.
Ooh, that is some serious. That's a hot
I
take
know.
right there.
I know.
Wow. I thought I was starting fires.
Sometimes I do prefer Irish or English butters over the French ones. Sometimes, and I know that's gonna strike hard in strike
Wow.
people's hearts. With that being said, I I'm open to any kind of food, really, at the end of the day. But
Yeah. You're not a picky person then?
I'm gonna get canceled for this.
Look, I always want people to interact with these videos, and we're gonna have plenty of comments to read. I can't wait. We're gonna have a lot of comments.
If I wasn't banned from the country because of COVID, now I am.
Oh my! Yeah, they're gonna have your name. You're gonna have their face and name on the Eiffel Tower when you get there. Do not let this man. Do you know how to speak French?
I do.
Oh, do you actually?
Enough. I wouldn't say I know enough to hold a complex conversation like I am right now in English, but I'm able to communicate with the locals, and ask for directions, ask for this at a restaurant or whatnot.
Are you also fluent in Spanish? I'm just assuming that you are.
Yeah.
I mean,
yes, I am.
You said you were 4 years old. I did go to school with some people that left their home country when they were about that age, and they have basically no recollection of, say 3 or 4 years old, leaving Russia. Don't speak Russian. It's like, really? You were born there and lived there for like 4 or 5 years. They're like, no, I have no Russian. It's like, okay.
Well,
sure.
here's the thing, John. And kind of too, I didn't even answer a question you had earlier. If I'm first generation, actually, I'm not first generation. I'm first generation immigrant. My younger brother, whose also name is Jonathan, he is a first generation. So he's never been to the, so his entire life has been American culture.
Right.
And most of us, and I think I can also speak for like the people that you met from Russia, we have this identity crisis where we have been thrown into American culture, but we've also many ways have lost the culture that we were born into.
Yeah.
So in my case, I've had to go back into learning about Mexican traditions by listening to the music, by eating more of the food, by trying to go to the costume because I've forgotten about it.
Is that easier to do? And I agree that's something that's very important for a lot of people to be in touch with their culture. Do you find that's easier to do where you live?
Yes, because it's California, so it's a very high Mexican influence in these areas.
I mean, if you're familiar with the history, and I'm sure you are, they used to be part of Mexico back in the day.
Yeah, no, exactly. So we have a lot of the missions here. The University of Santa Clara has one of the historic missions that was built in like
the 1800s or
16 something.
Oh wow!
So it's a very historic place, So we have most of the architecture in California, at least in the Bay Area, is mission style.
That's pretty cool. I do adore like Southwestern and Southeast. I guess it's Southwestern. Yeah, I guess just anything from like Southwestern architecture. Because when I went to Arizona, I got to experience the beauty of the deserts, the beauty of the stone and the rocks, and because they have so much extra money. Because I'm sure for you guys in California, maybe not where you live, but you still get snow, at least in Northern California. In Arizona, they don't get snow, so that means they don't have plows, they don't have to salt the roads, they don't have to spend all this extra money from their highway department to facilitate clearing the roads from snow. So that means they spend all this extra money on the beautification of the area, just making it look incredible. And that's something that I wish we could have a little bit more up here, but there's no reason to have like beautiful architecture that's going to be covered in like snow,
Oh, but here's the thing, John. I'm kind of sick of mission style architecture.
All right, let's switch. Ready? 3, 2, 1. All right, everybody watching, we actually just switched spots. So, yep, I'm in California right now. Wow. Oh my gosh, all the mission architecture. It's incredible.
Wow. New York.
what's Binghamton like? It's probably the same.
It's very great.
Yeah. It's only, yep, I'm looking out my window right now. A little blue over there getting, when they do the forecast, the guy just does a big sigh. He goes, we go, yep, all right. Thanks, Jeff. Tuning in with Jeffrey from the next weather forecast. And the next day he just clears his throat. All right, and there it is, the next weather forecast.
Great. But here's the thing, right?
Yeah.
Since I've been a very young child, actually. Excuse me,
You're good.
My throat.
I drink coconut. Actually, I got to take a second and say a couple words, just because we've been going on for a little bit. This is great. This is absolutely fantastic. As always, all of our podcasts are brought to you by Socks with John. Socks with John on TikTok. Jonathan_E_Holmberg. Just like the YouTube channel here, we're actually posting them on the YouTube Shorts as well as TikTok now, and maybe I'll post this one on Instagram and whatever else as well. If you, viewer, listener, want to see your pair of socks on John's feet, all you got to do is hit him up and say, John, I'd love for you, John Holmberg, to wear my socks, and I'll do it. I'll make a video for you guys, too. We're coming up tomorrow is going to be 1 year for the sock videos. I'm very excited for that. I have something planned. And also, I also have to say, if anybody's watched this video this deep, comment John drinks coconut water while he does the podcast, because yes, that's true. And it also shows that people we have viewer retention up to at least an hour and a half in. All right, where do we leave off? I think you were telling me about your advents in wanting to travel and how we were going to start a war in France about how terrible their milk was. I'm pretty sure that's where we were. So go ahead and reiterate how much you hate the French people and everything they stand for really quick, just for our listeners.
Why are you putting me on the spot here?
No. What kind of? I haven't put you anywhere. No, I'm just being I'm just joking around, but that's what you said. We got to be held accountable to the words that we speak, and I think you said something like the English people and Irish people have better butter. That's pretty. I mean, you basically already said that. You know.
I mean, have you tried Kerrygold? That's amazing Irish butter. Okay, that is really delicious. For me, at least, is really delicious.
I can't say I got to specifically try like just the butter while I was over there. I went to the Guinness factory in Dublin, and that was awesome.
Oh yeah, how was that?
That was a really good time, actually. I did enjoy that. We had all these like younger kids that were on the school trip with us. They couldn't go to the Guinness factory because they weren't old enough. So it was like 6 people out of this like 40-something group. And I just had a really good time. I actually fell in love with Guinness. And this is something everybody says, but the Guinness in Ireland and the Guinness anywhere else in the world is not the same. It is just not even the same. It is 100% true. I cannot spoil myself and go to like a bar and have a Guinness because it's just, even if it's coming out of the tap, it is not the same.
So
that's been my experience, at least.
It's interesting you said that because personally, I don't like beer. Like,
oh yeah, same though. But I'll drink Guinness.
Yeah, and that's the thing because Guinness looks really delicious and thick and dark and like nutty, like those flavors. So I'm curious to try Guinness. But then hearing these statements, not just from yourself, but other people, that's not the same. I'm like, should I just wait until I'm in?
No, truly. UK? I'll tell you my first experience with Ireland. Actually, that was the first. We went to Dublin, Ireland for our first stop. Then we took a ferry to then I think we just took like a train or something to Northern Ireland or a bus maybe. They're connected, and then we took a ferry to Scotland, and then we took a train to England. But anyway, when we first get to Dublin, we first touch down. We get from the airport, we get into this like hotel. It's very crammed, so it's basically just like a house. We get to the top and we sit down. They're serving us food, and they go, "Oh, who wants a drink or whatever?" And everybody in our group's like, "Oh, we're not 18. We're not old enough." Bartender comes to me because I'm sitting at the bar. He goes, "How old are you?" And I was like, "Well, I'm 18." He goes, "Oh, I hear you can't drink over there if you're not 21 in the States, that is." And I was like, "Yeah, that's true." Pours me a Guinness, smacks it down on the table. Here's like he goes, "Welcome to Ireland." And I was like, "Oh, hell yeah." So I take my first sip of Guinness. That's the first food I'd had off the plane was a pint of Guinness at this like hotel. And so all the people that could drink, the 6 people in our group are like, "Oh, this is great." Like one kid like afraid of it, like takes a sip. He's like, "Dude, it's so bad. I'm not drinking that." I ended up having his. I was like, "Wow, okay, I guess I like Guinness because that's pretty good."
It's again, it kind of speaks to like the American culture of alcohol. I mean, we've had. I mean, not even speaking about prohibition, but I mean, I know so many people who were under 21 that were already drinking by 18.
Yeah, that's the culture of the United States.
I mean, in my family, well, not my family specifically, but other members of my family, like the kids were already drinking beer, like, and they were like 12 and 10.
That's pretty young. Yeah.
Yeah, they were not drinking the entire. I mean, I was sipping on beer bottles of Corona, wow. When I was that age. So I mean, not drinking the entire bottle, but taking a sip or two because my parents were like, "Fine,
sure, yeah."
But so it's interesting the alcohol culture we have in this country.
Well, compared to Ireland, I would say it's pretty rough. Like they have a serious alcohol problem over there, right? We do as well, but a serious alcohol problem. We saw people getting arrested and stuff. That was pretty funny, honestly. when we were in Edinburgh, in the capital of Scotland, we got to see this one guy getting arrested, and he was just like swearing up us. But mind you, they have an accent, so it's hilarious to us. I'll bone your dead nan, this and that, and the police officer's egging him on. He's like, oh yeah, what else? What else would you do? What else would you do? And we're like, he's saying something like, are you good with that baton or like good with that stick? He goes, oh, you say something again, and you'll find out how good I am with it. It's like, yeah, it's like get him, like throw his ass in jail, like yeah. But that's like totally sidestep from like helping that guy in his condition and all. Like it's funny to see for us, we're foreigners, so it's funny to see this guy get arrested for being drunk in public as somebody going to your country and seeing that. But that happening in your own country, you're not happy to see that. So
yeah, no, I find like Scottish sense of humor funny. I really do. I really understand. I think it's so funny. It's so
yeah.
It's just I don't know how to describe it, but I find it funny.
Like funny, like it brings you joy funny, or funny like you can laugh at it funny?
Both. It brings me joy and I can laugh at it because there's something so like humble, I think, about Scottish humor. Like you said, that guy, kind of going after the policeman's baton is like, this is just hilarious. It's hilarious,
It's funny to see because we see a lot of movies where it's like, for American vision of other countries is like whatever country can still speak English. So we get like accents of English. And so to us to see this guy, it's like, oh my gosh, that's just like the movies of like, somebody with an accent getting in trouble, So it was funny for us, but in reality, maybe it was still funny subjectively. Maybe it was still subjectively funny overall.
Of course, humor is subjective. Look, I laugh at the most unserious of things. I laugh at certain planet names. I laugh at certain words.
Well, which ones? Which ones do you like? Which ones are so funny?
Come on. Well, the classic
Mercury. No, that wasn't it.
No, it wasn't Mercury.
Neptune. It was Neptune. I knew it.
It was Neptune.
Tell me more about your experience in places that you've wanted to travel so far.
Well, before I even say that, kind of going back to the English thing, that other countries speak English. Actually, where was it? So when I was going to go to France, actually, I was going to do a layover in England, and I was trying to, see if I could spend maybe a day or two in London.
Yeah.
And my dumb behind had this fear. I was like, am I going to be able to communicate with the locals in London?
The English. Could you communicate with the English?
I was like, do I need to learn English? And I'm like, wait, I'm thinking in English. What the hell am I saying here?
Oh, you do think in English?
Yes, I think in English, John.
Well, no, that's not a crazy question because people from other countries, they speak in their native language. So I wasn't sure if you firstly think in Spanish and then translate.
Here's the thing, and someone just described me perfectly to a T a couple of months ago. I'm a coconut.
You're a coconut. Okay.
Meaning I'm brown on the outside and I'm white in the inside.
Okay. That's what Okay.
That's what and I say that because
you're not big, round, and hairy?
No, meaning that at least for myself, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, that since I've been brought to this country at such a young age, I've been very Americanized. I've been very whitewashed. And so sometimes I prefer, I don't know, green bean casserole to tacos. Like, I know that's very controversial to say, but I'm American at this point, even though I'm born in a foreign country, I'm 100% American. So sometimes I don't even like spicy food that much, and
there's I don't know if that's necessarily like a white thing, because I'll tell you what, if you go down to certain places in down south or like even Pennsylvania, the people down there that are their hot sauces, they're not like ooh Tabasco. It's like butthole wrencher. It's like liquid dog shit. It's like I'm not even joking with you. Like people are like, oh, this one right here, this one will put you on the can for 3 days straight, and they're like, that's nothing. And he's like, I had one put me on the can for 2 days and then 2 weeks. It's like, all right, well. And then Sally over here doesn't take salt and pepper on her hot dog because it's too spicy. Like that
No,
is I can see the
no, I'm
comparison.
not that white, John. No, 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 I'm not that
Yeah,
white.
you got to remember where hot sauce comes from. It does come from California, and well,
Yeah.
not just hot sauce in general, but the coal miners or the miners that had lost all their senses were getting numbed. They couldn't taste, they
Mhm.
couldn't smell, so they lost
Mhm.
their sense of or for their appetite. So everything
Yeah.
had to get drowned in Tabasco sauce, and that's how they would
Yeah.
taste. So and I can't imagine that during that time, a lot of those people were not white people because that's just how the country was.
And something to actually break the stereotype of Tabasco, us Mexicans, well, at least a lot of Latinos don't even care for Tabasco.
Cholula.
We don't. Yeah, we do Cholula or Tapatio. Honestly,
Tapatio,
like,
yeah. I love Cholula.
it's kind of like a lot of people don't even care for Tabasco. That's like a very Southern American, southern United States kind
Yeah.
of invention. But no, so it's kind of like, that's what I say. I'm Mexican, but I'm Americanized completely. I really am. Somebody the other day actually said, "Oh, happy Mexican Independence Day," and I'm like, okay.
I live in the United States. What are you talking about?
I'm like, I'd rather go to the fest I'd rather go, celebrate 4th of July and pig out on like baby back ribs and hot dogs and corn on the cob,
Yeah.
But it is what it is. At
When
this
is
point.
Mexican Independence Day? What's the day of the week or day of the year?
I don't even know. I think it's like the 4th of September or something. I don't
Really?
even know.
That's interesting. And that's to
Yeah.
celebrate the independence from Spain?
Supposedly, yeah, but then everybody gets pissed drunk on the 4th of July. What was it? 5th of May?
Cinco de Mayo?
Cinco de Mayo, yeah. But then that's a whole other thing. It was just like a small battle in the city of Puebla, apparently.
Yeah, the Cinco de Mayo. Yeah, a lot of people confuse that for the Day of the Dead, which I think that's more recently, right? Wasn't that more recently?
Yeah.
Dia de los Muertos?
It just happened on the 1st of November.
Oh, the first of September, and then you have. See, no. I really do like Mexican culture because I feel like a lot of that has influenced American culture. And I'll be honest. Anybody in the United States that's like overtly racist towards Mexicans probably have more in common than a Mexican than they do with me. And that's just being honest. If you, like you said, there's a lot of traditional conservative values in Mexico that are valued and maintained, and a lot of those do come from Catholicism or other types of religion as well. And that is definitely, the same for people in the United States. We're a very deeply religious country, not just in terms of Christianity, but other forms of religion as well.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I have a lot of friends and well, I don't really have friends, or I don't really have friends. I don't really have family that are followers of Islam, but I have a lot of friends that are Muslim. Sure. And they're some of the nicest people ever, 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 ever. But they're also very, very devout. And a lot of their cultures comes from their other countries that they're from, but also their religion as well. And I think that's just something a lot of people have in common with, just generalizing, religion from America to other countries. I feel like that's something people have more in common than they understand that they do with other people.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And it's funny you even say that because I knew somebody who had a friend who was Muslim, and then they were complaining constantly how they couldn't plan lunch during Ramadan with their Muslim friends because apparently their Muslim friend couldn't. I'm not even sure what they do.
They can't have so it's during sun up from sundown. They can't eat. They can't drink. They can't partake in certain activities like they can't smoke and they can't gamble.
Yeah, so they were complaining how they couldn't make lunch dates or go out to brunch or during the day, and I'm like, that's hilarious.
That's interesting. My friends, I'm very close to them. I'm basically like part of their family because of things that have happened. So they're very important to me, and I find it so interesting because I had said earlier I just came back from my grandparents and we had a conversation. I was in their house for 2 minutes. And we're talking about, they're asking me questions about life and whatnot. I'm telling about how things are. And I had mentioned something about the homeless population in downtown because, that's something that I deal with a lot, or at least that's something that's on my mind a lot. So, and immediately they're like, oh, yeah, we heard something about how there was something going on at the library in downtown. And I was like, oh, yeah? And they're like, yeah, like there was some people that were selling drugs out of there or gay people were meeting men down there. And I was like, well, that's not against the law, is it? Right? And they were like, well, no. And I was like, what? Why would you even say that? Like, what the fuck? Basically, I'll say that.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
you're combining this group of people with like I was like, what? So one of the things I said, I was like, that's not against the law, right? And they're like, well, no. And I was like, what's wrong with gay people? I said, as somebody who's like selling ice cream to people on the street side, I see a lot of different faces, and obviously, I dealt with a lot of people that were homeless. But I
Hmm.
also sold ice cream once a week, every Thursday night. I used to sell ice cream at a drag show over the summer and during the spring this year. And so I was like, there's nothing wrong with these people at all. And they're like, oh, yeah, nothing wrong with being happy. And I was like, there's nothing wrong with people enjoying their own sexual proclivities, whether that be with a man and a man or a woman and a woman. And they're like, whoa. And it's like, why are we having this conversation? It's going to be 2025, and you guys are still caught up about things that were legalized over 10 years ago. Like,
Yeah.
don't worry. So the religious aspect that's controlling their perception of how they should treat people is still toxic enough to make them basically discriminate against people. And that's where I can say I have grievances with religion, because that seems to be a very archaic idea or ideology that gay people shouldn't exist, or that gay people shouldn't enjoy their, like I had said, sexual proclivities is a good
Sure.
way to say do whatever they want.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I say the same thing. Just do whatever you want. I just don't care. I really don't care.
Yeah, it's not my life, and I'm not the person that's in your bedroom. I'm not watching you. I'm not partaking. So why should I care? Or what should my opinion hold value in your life?
Yeah. Exactly. No, exactly.
But
No,
yeah,
yeah. No, it's an interesting country. This is why I like this country. We can all coexist with, even though we may think different from each other.
yeah.
I wouldn't give it up for anything.
Oh, yeah, I think it's a great country, and I feel like that's something that people forget often is that like feel good that at the very least with any type of disagreement you can have with somebody or ideology that you don't agree with. At the very least, you can express that you don't agree with it in this country. You can't. You got to understand. Even if you did go to England, there's certain things you can't say online while you're a citizen of that country that you could get arrested for.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, to me, that is just absolutely bananas. That you can't. I mean, but that's some of the foundation of this country was founded on that. Hey, let's not be like them. So
Yeah.
it's hilarious to think that we have these types of laws over here that we can still criticize and be upset with for the fact that they exist, but at the very least we're able to criticize them, and that's a big deal. It's a big deal.
No, exactly. And yeah, no, that's 100% true. And I think that well, at least in my experience, I've tried to
Mhm.
study other cultures, and I'm like, we're a very lucky position in the United States.
Yeah.
Because even because like you said, in some countries, if you speak ill about a certain idea, law, policy, your life could be on the line, like literally.
We could say it as far as an extent of North Korea, which they have generational punishment, to
Oh
which
yeah,
something happens, your entire family could get locked up for what you did,
oh
or
yeah.
sent to labor camps for what you did. And
But
then
you know what? But you
mm,
know what about North? I've actually been wanting to travel to North Korea, to
I
be honest.
I would love to, but it's like a bucket list thing for me, you know.
It kind of is for me because here's the thing: looking at North Korea, it's kind of stuck in time.
It's a time capsule. That's the exact same reason I want to see it. It's like from the 50s. That would be so
Exactly,
crazy to see.
exactly. So
Like,
that's why I want to go.
yeah, that would be really cool. I'll be honest with you, Manuel. There's probably no chance you and I are ever going to get to go to see North Korea, because by the time things settle down over there might not be a North Korea, or it might just be Korea.
Oh, okay. Wow, that's a very controversial statement.
I'm being honest. Either it's all going to be North Korea, it's all going to be South Korea. But things are going to change. Um, but for the example I was trying to draw, like things could be as bad as for you can't criticize your government, you live in North Korea, or things could be as similar as for Mexicans. I think more recently there's a Mexican mayor. He was going to be the Mexican mayor, and he was murdered.
Oh,
He was murdered by the cartel. And
oh
that's
yeah,
that's a
oh
very
yeah.
difficult thing as well, because you don't feel like you even have, okay, you live in that country, you can't speak out against certain people, even if you're a powerful individual like an elected official.
Yeah. No, and that's kind of goes back to the conversation we kind of goes back to the conversations we were having earlier. That
Yeah.
that's why that's why a lot of Mexican citizens want to leave Mexico. That's one reason. The cartel.
Yeah, the
But
cartels.
you know, to speak honestly, Mexico has gone forward. It has progressed economically and socially, but I think Mexico still has a very long way to go. To be,
Yeah. If I had
you
it
know,
my way, I would love to see. I mean, well, okay, maybe this is like scary to say. If I had it my way, I think that there should be some type of union between like Canada and Mexico because we're our largest trading partners, the United States, Canada, and Mexico. It already has the largest trade agreement on the planet. I forget what it's called,
mhm. uh,
but it's
yes,
yeah,
mhm.
basically United States, Canada, Mexico has the strongest and the largest trade agreement out of any other country. That might come change with like the idea of new tariffs coming in. That's a terrible idea. But if we had some type of union to where Mexicans, Canadians, and United States citizens could all intermingle, similar to how the European Union works, I feel
Mhm.
like it would change things drastically because I think Mexico is not even seen as a first world country on like the world stage. I think it's like a developing nation, or I don't think
It
it's
it
third world,
it
but
was it was actually it was like a third world country like 30, 40 years ago. So I think
yeah.
now, yeah, they're still developing. I think like they're a second world. I think at this point.
I was going to use
Yeah,
that word. I was 100% sure. So, but okay, so they are a developing nation, so it would be like second world. So they're not
yeah.
necessarily first world, but I do know that they do have very nice places there that are
Oh,
probably
of
more
course.
equitable than places in the United
No, of
States.
course. No, of
Um,
course.
but just as well, I love Mexico and I love Mexicans and I have a great respect for Mexican and Spanish culture as well. So I would love to see an integration of the United States kind of like way of life and kind of if it meant to the extent of like Mexico needs to invest more in their military so they can kick out the rest of the cartels and kind of retake their country, redevelop, and then a lot of money has to go into healthcare and education. That's where I feel like a lot of countries kind of need to start. Kick out whatever.
Hmm.
For Afghanistan, it's the Taliban. Then restart your education, healthcare. A
Yeah.
very difficult thing to do. Easier to say, right?
No, exactly. And the whole cartel situation in Mexico, it's such a complicated, subject
Right.
that was because even it's kind of like an open secret that the cartel is working with the government.
Oh yeah, and
Yeah.
it's also kind of everybody knows this is going on and it's happening. It's that the
Hmm.
drug problem in the United States is perpetuated by the need for profit from the cartels.
Yeah.
And a lot of people we could say that yeah, drugs are finding their way across the border. That's the problem, but that's not the root cause. The root cause is that it's these cartels that want to make money on the American population. And so what they're doing is they're sending these drugs across the border.
Hmm.
And so
Yeah. Yeah.
it's yeah. I would love to see the United States, and this will never happen, especially. Well, I don't know if it'll never happen. It'll never happen with the current administration or the next administration. But I would love for us to say, Mexico, we know what you need. We're going to help you. And whether it be like military equipment, and or whether it be like actually American personnel to say, we're going to help Mexico overcome the plague of the cartels. For the past 50, 60, 70 years, this has been a problem, and
But
it's affecting.
actually, I'll
Yeah.
shed some light. I'll destroy that reality right now, John. And I can tell you right now, as a Mexican myself,
Mhm.
Mexico will never allow that
No, that's too bad.
because because at least the Mexican mentality, which I've had to come to understand actually myself in the couple of
Tell me
past
about
years,
it. Tell me about it.
is that the Mexican man is a very proud man. Has a
Hmm.
lot of pride.
I have heard
So
that.
so he doesn't look for outside help.
Mm,
So it's the mental border that would never allow. So the Mexican government would never allow that. And on
interesting.
top of that, and then on top of that, the Mexican government always has been suspicious of the American government because
For good reason.
for good reasons, of course. And so even though it's not always the time, sometimes because of that pride, there is a suspicion that there's probably going to be something else, on top of that. So unfortunately, that's the issue with Mexican mentality. Not to say that there's issues with American mentality, but
Oh,
because
there
of that
absolutely
pride,
are, but yeah,
yeah,
just as well.
because of that, but because of that pride, Mexico will never allow that. I can guarantee you,
That's
a
interesting.
hundred
And
percent, a
you're the
hundred.
person to ask though is the good thing though. So I know that
Yeah,
now. And
and I
this
see
is
it in my
all. Yeah,
family.
this is great.
Yeah, and I see it in my family all the time. They don't ask for help.
Yeah.
They're very proud people.
Well, I could see. And here's the problem. Here's the problem. I could see it becoming such an issue that what needs to happen is something similar to that of like, the American military, and that would basically be like an invasion of Mexico, and that's not what
Yeah.
we want. To, if and so we're not trying to talk about politics, but for how things are going if anybody's familiar with the Israel and Lebanon situation, there are Lebanese militants that are basically enemies of the Israeli state, and they attacked the Israeli state, and they fired rockets, whatever else. But the Lebanese government, they don't do anything about these militants because they're not affecting the Lebanese people.
Yeah.
So they're basically letting them do what they want. So that's the situation now, is that they're doing airstrikes, they're sending rockets into Lebanon. Effectively, they're invading, or they're using war tactics against another country that's basically like going to war with Lebanon. They're not at war with Lebanon, but they're at war with the Lebanese militants.
Yeah.
So we could, with the wrong person in power, we could say a similar thing to, oh well, it's not the Mexicans, it's the Mexican cartels, and if the Mexican government's not going to do anything about it, the United States military is going to do something about it, and they would probably get pretty far, if I'm being honest with you, because it's the United States government, and I don't want to see that, but I do know that in some realm that that's not like a path that should even be talked about, or what's the word, not acquiesced. Hopefully something like that doesn't ever happen, but
Yeah.
just as well, we do understand that like it's a similar situation, and if we want to handle this drug problem, and we want to stop the immigration issue, and we know where to start, similar things like this could coalesce into an issue where it becomes, I could see, like I said, the wrong person in power wanting to make a move like that.
Yeah.
So that's like speculative, but it's a very, very real and relative situation, similar to what's going on in the Middle East.
Yeah, no, it's very complex issues that I don't think I'm ever going to see a solution to them in my lifetime.
Don't say that. You're just a bit older than I am. I hope to see I hope to see all the modern day issues solved. We'll have new issues come the future, but we can get there.
Well, I was going to say, I don't think they're going to be fully solved.
Yeah.
I know there's going to be progress being going to be made, but whatever I hope that our generation has decided on, is going to be much better than, the people who have existed before us.
What can you say about what's the name of the country? What's the country it's in? It's still in North America. It's a very small country, and they had like huge gang problems. They had a new president come in.
Oh, Venezuela?
No, not Venezuela.
Oh,
it's two words. It's a two-word country.
El Salvador?
El Salvador, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, they had basically, and mind you, they're like, I can't give you an actual estimation for what the size of their country is compared to like a state or something else. Oh, I got these dogs barking, going crazy. Whatever. But whatever the size of the country.
They have opinions about El Salvador too.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, is that they had such a gang problem, but their president came in and he did so much about it that they're basically like a model country for how handling these gang issues should be. They have, I don't know if you've seen online, I'm actually excited to hear what you would say from this, but they have these gigantic detention centers, huge, that are dedicated just strictly for these gangs. And I feel like that's a good step in the right direction to say, if you are part of these gangs, like this is where, like, we have a dedicated space in prison just for you. Like, yeah, maybe a lot of that is through like more authoritarian means that I don't agree with, but at the end of the day, he saw some serious results. But say what you were going to say. I'm excited now.
No, I mean, no. Actually, you kind of hit the nail on the head of what I was going to say. That I think the situation for El Salvador was the saying that drastic times call for drastic measures.
Yeah.
However, with that being said, I only think, I mean, and not to get too political, but I think maybe they have to exercise that power with a lot of caution, because
I agree.
easily, he can become very drunk with the authority that he has as president, and can start unacting and become, like what's the other word? What was the country that we just mentioned?
North Korea.
No, yeah, it could be like North Korea, where it's very authoritative.
Right.
Yeah. So I think good for them, that they're making good strides, but they just have to exercise with caution. You have to be careful.
Right, and this is very similar to an issue I've been with the homeless population in our area.
Yeah.
I feel like this just goes to show that the solutions to problems are human problems. So we have human solutions, and everybody kind of tries the same things. And some ways they work, some ways they don't. But we can see it's through consideration of a certain population of people that the right things will happen or the wrong things will happen. And so what I've worried about is if we have all these extra police officers that come into downtown Binghamton and they start policing like they should be, then we have an issue of over policing where they're breaking, well, people are breaking the law, and as a response, the police are then violating that person's rights. Yes, they broke the law. Yes, they need to be apprehended and they need to be taken care of and processed the right way. But if you allow for the culture to shift from, okay, now all we got to do is call the police and they're going to handle it in whatever regard, that can start to create a cycle of abuse to where people are calling the police because they know that a certain thing's going to happen to a certain individual for how they look, and whether they did something right or wrong, they're going to be policed in a way that's not appropriate to whatever they did versus didn't do. And so
Yeah.
that's the issue of, if you're going to do the right thing, you have to consistently be cautious of doing or exerting your power, because you can very easily abuse that power and do the wrong thing.
No, exactly, and that's the kind of like what I was saying in the beginning about the more conservative way of life in California that's starting to emerge. That we're sick of it. So and we've a lot of Californians are sick of it. A lot of them, the majority, and so we're starting. There are drastic measures that are starting to be taken.
And that's good.
Yeah, because some of these places, unfortunately, like the homeless encampments, they are cities. In many ways, they are cities.
Yeah, I agree with it, but it's gotten to the point where they've been like disenfranchised for so long that they don't really have a choice else but to do that. And the longer you don't address the problem, the more the more of a settlement that's really going to become, until it's like, okay, can we really kick these people out of here?
No, exactly. So it's kind of like a thing what we say, just rip the band-aid at this point.
Yeah.
Just rip it off. Just we just have to let things heal. Unfortunately.
Yeah. That's a good way to say it. We have to let things heal, to just do what you need to do and let things play out.
Yeah, no, and I don't even know who I heard, and it's been kind of vague, but how sometimes, like, how every state has a motto, right? And apparently California's is the Golden State.
Yep. So ours is literally "I love New York." I love New York. Yeah.
In fact, when I was in New York, I was such a tourist. Oh my goodness. I was like, the entire time I was like, I'm such a tourist in my own country. I went to Times Square and I bought myself like the "I love New York," "I heart New York."
Yeah, it's just a thing. Yeah.
It was overpriced, but I think it was worth it.
You went to New York City and you went to Times Square and you spent money. That's like the most touristy thing you could possibly do.
That's what I kept saying in my head. I'm like, I'm such a damn tourist in my own country. This is pathetic.
You know what's an impressive thing to do? It's to go to New York City and not spend any money.
Look, here's the thing. I have a few things to say about New York. Okay, first of all,
go for it. I'm all ears.
First of all, New York is seen as California's sister state.
Yep.
Both are iconic in their own right.
Very large cities, very liberal populations, but also rural areas where a lot of farming gets done. Yep.
Exactly.
Very similar.
Exactly. And so when I went to New York, so I landed in where the hell did I land? I landed in JFK.
Yep. That's where we flew out to when we went to the United Kingdom. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, and the thing about New York, so when I got to Times Square, I think it was like the second day after I landed, I get there, and literally like the meme, I said, okay, let's go. Because I thought Times Square was going to be like this extremely like exciting place full of like energy, and I'm like, this is really small.
Well, it's a lot of people, mostly. It's like the people are kind of the attraction, but it's also like everybody that's like dancing and doing whatever, dressed up like Spider-Man. There's a million people doing that, and it's all over the place. So it's like, what's really special about it,
No, exactly. And I was like, what the hell is... I mean, I've seen movies. I've seen being filmed here. I've seen commercials, like talking about Times Square and this. And I'm like, this is kind of boring. It's fucking lame.
I mean, yeah, every single American movie that has New York City in it gets it wrong. It is not
I
this
have
like incredibly beautiful. Oh, it is a. It sometimes, on occasion, depending on the day, it is a trash palace. There is, it's just not like as good as people think it is. It's like the
no,
Gilded City.
and
People
it
have an
was
idea of it, and it's not what it is.
yeah, and it was the first time ever that I experienced Paris syndrome. It was the very first time in my life,
What
and
is
I understood.
Paris syndrome?
Oh, very good. Thank you for asking.
Yeah.
So, it's a long story short, if I remember correctly, is that when Japanese businessmen, I think it was in the 80s, went to Paris, but because they had the notion that Paris was this beautiful, grand city, they were disappointed
Yeah.
when they got there.
Okay.
And that is Paris, that's Paris syndrome, where you go somewhere expecting it to be grand, but you're kind of let down, and it's not exactly what it was supposed to be.
Yeah, I feel like that's yeah. New York is 100%.
However, with that being said, I did spend most of my time in Manhattan. I mean, I could not finish Manhattan Island, but I
Oh,
went.
when you travel, you actually like all the way. You go through every
Oh,
like cross places out. Like, oh, I already went there. I already went there.
oh yeah, oh dude,
Really?
oh yeah. One day I went to the Empire State Building,
Okay, I've never been there.
which was the first time I understood how. It's so funny. I'm gonna backtrack a little bit, but
Go for it.
like I went into like the image of the greedy businessman man, like Rockefellers.
Yeah,
And
like the
know,
black suits and the top hats and all that.
I went into the Empire State Building and I'm like, I get it. Like I want to be, I want to be.
I get it. That's all. I get it.
I want to
Yeah.
be a Rockefeller. I want to be a Vanderbilt. I want to be a
Yeah.
Rothschild. We're having my penthouse office in the Empire
Yeah, the
State
tallest building in New York City. Yeah, it'd be cool.
But I was actually very proud of how beautiful the Empire State Building is.
Really, you found pride in that, really?
It was really what I expected. How grand and how, because people have talked and written about this building for so much for so long.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That when I went up to the very last floor, like the very 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 last floor in the Needle, I call it the Needle.
Right.
I understood the pride of this building, and I was very happy.
That's cool. That's interesting. You can appreciate things like that, because I know I would say the majority of the people that I run into don't have that capacity to have consideration like that or to have appreciation like that.
Oh no, of course. And yeah, back to your question. No, I went to the. I was going to say Eiffel Tower. No, I went to the Empire State Building. I went to the Statue of Liberty. I went to Ellis Island. I went to.
Oh, you actually went to the statue? Like you went to Ellis Island? Like, did you get? When did you go? When did you go to the city?
This was back 2 years ago, actually. 2 years ago. See, it's been a while for me at this point, and I miss New York desperately. I really do.
Really? What do you miss about it? What do you like? What's the, because it really can't be so different from Bay Area.
It is. No, it is. It's
really?
like night and day. It's night and day, dude. Look, here's the thing.
Yeah, go for it. Illuminate me.
First of all, I fell in love. So I've spent most of my time in Soho.
Okay.
And I fell in love with it as much as anybody has had. But New York has this energy. Y'all have this energy.
It's this FU energy. That's what it is. It's not the nicest.
Look, because if you come from sunny California, it's more laid back here. We relax. Out there, it's hustle and bustle, go, 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 power walk everywhere. And I fell in love with that energy. I fell in love with it. And then just hearing the cars and smelling, everything, and just I love New York. I really do miss it. And then on top of that, because it is New York and it's a much older state than California, it's still a very heavy, like, European influence, I feel more.
Yeah, if you go to, I don't know if you've spent any time in, like, New England area. Sorry to cut you off. No. Like Massachusetts and New Hampshire, Vermont area. You want to talk about New England, like, like the architecture, everything's made out of like the same colored bricks, everything's made out of like the same type of wood structures. It is just very different, but it's so refined. And yeah, it's the oldest part of the country.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's from the 1600s, but when we went to Ireland. To say for a second, but when we went to Ireland, we got to see the youngest part of their country, which was made in like 10 whatever, like the year was
Yeah.
1000.
Yeah.
And my friend, who unfortunately he's no longer with us, so I remember this very vividly now, but
Mhm.
he had said when the youngest part of their country is older than your entire country by over 500 years, and we
I
were
know.
like, yeah. We were thinking like, 1776, I think the war was over by 1783, and the country, or 1781, and then the country was founded technically like 1783 July 2nd, then it was July 4th. So that's like not even close. Like we're closer to that time than those people were closer to the timing of the youngest part of Ireland, and we're like damn,
Yeah.
damn.
Yeah. It's crazy. No, it's crazy how older Europe is. I agree.
Oh yeah, I
It,
find that almost because we got to see some Roman architecture over there. That
yeah.
was you got to remember that I mean at that time I think it was I think it was AD. I don't think Romans. If I'm trying to remember my history correctly, simply for this podcast, but I'm pretty sure that it was after. It was after the new era, or however they determined time to be. It was AD when they
Mhm.
had moved into the like what modern day United Kingdom would be.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
want to say so. But yeah, anyway, I got to see some super old architecture and like mosaics and stuff, and it was like, this is not just like this is ancient. Like my country doesn't even exist, basically. Like
It wasn't even an idea.
it wasn't even like not even close, not even close. So that is crazy for me. But I love.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll say this, and you can probably agree as well. I love this country. I love this country. Every state is like its own mini country, and they have their own.
Yep.
Basically, you could anywhere in this country you could grab somebody. You could grab somebody else from a different part of the country, put them in a room
Hmm.
together, tell them very little about each other, and they probably get along.
Yeah.
Mind you, if some person's like a super like get like a clan member and like a drag queen, I can't imagine they're gonna have a good conversation, right? But just at the end of the day, if you strip them down from take off that clan attire, take off your makeup, and just sit down and say, hey, talk about your families, I'm sure they'd get along.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, I feel like the culture in this country is that like it's just to be yourself and to be happy.
No, of course. I mean, those are the founding principles. The pursuit of
Yeah,
happiness.
pursuit of happiness. Yeah, absolutely.
And I encourage anyone, whoever's listening, or watching, if you're from another country, if you want to come to the United States, know that you're going to be welcomed with open arms.
Yeah, whatever you see online, whatever people's interpretation of how you're going to be treated in this country, there are people that exist here that are racist,
Of
that
course.
are
Of course.
discriminatory, but it's not as bad as it seems depending on where you go. And a lot of people, you'd be surprised. That's what you'd be very surprised. I used to work at a warehouse. It was a really terrible job, but there's this guy there. His name is Julio. I'll never forget Julio. He's hilarious. And he was Brazilian and Italian. So he had a very strong and very interesting accent because it was like Portuguese and Italian.
Yeah.
I asked him one time because, we were just talking and I was like, do you ever face like discrimination here? Like, what's been your example so far? He goes, hey, sometimes this and that, whatever. But he goes, some man, he asked me at the grocery store, he said something like, well, where are you from? And I said, China. And I started dying laughing because this guy is so not from China. But he's like, oh yeah, he says somebody say something racist to me. I say, hey, sorry, I'm Chinese. I don't understand you. And it's like, dude, you're not Chinese. You're not even close. So I'm glad he can find humor in it and that it's not that bad. Because I'll tell you what. I've experienced racism as an American in other countries, and that was interesting to see. When I went to Canada, I went to Montreal and I got a hotel. It was just me. I was supposed to go with two other friends, but they kind of bailed on me, so I just went myself. So the first night I'm there, the next day I go down to the breakfast area because I know that the restaurant opens at 8 in the morning. I get there, it's a little after 8. I'm like, okay, I see another table. They have food, orange juices, all this stuff they're eating, and then there's not really anybody else, so I'm just sitting down at a table waiting. A security guard comes up to me and goes, what are you doing here? I was like, I'm just waiting for the restaurant to open. I was going to get some food. He goes, you can't eat here. And I was like, when's the restaurant open? He goes, no. do you have a room here? I said, yeah, I can show you my room key. I got my room key out of my pocket. He goes, you can't eat here. I was like, I can't eat here. I said, what about these people? I said, he goes, don't worry about them. I was like, oh, okay, I see. I understand now.
Wow.
So there was like water in the front of the room. I said, what about that water? Is that water for everybody? He goes, do you have a room here? I said, this is my room key right here. I said, if you'd like to follow me up, I can show you what room it goes to and it'll work. I said, is that water for people that have a room at this hotel? He goes, yes, you can have some water. I went over, I drank some water very obnoxiously. I was like, ah. That's good water, and then I, went across the street, went down to like Tim Hortons, saw some other restaurants. It was fine, it was whatever, but that was one of the first times I've experienced racism. This guy did not let me, and mind you, as soon as I called this hotel to like schedule an appointment, they answered in French, like, bonjour, yada, 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 and I was like, hi, how are you? And you can hear this guy on the phone go, hello, how can I help you? And it's like, oh my God, like I get it.
Yeah.
I'm an American. How dare I, right?
And this is in Canada. I mean, you would think that they're known for being nice or whatnot.
Yeah, dude, I've told plenty of people this story now, and all these people that are like, some people are from Canada, or some people like spend a lot of time in Canada, and they're like, really? That's very interesting. They're like, where'd you go? I was like, Montreal. They're like, oh, yeah. They're like, do you speak French? I'm like, no. They're like, oh, yeah, no, that makes sense. It's like, oh.
Well,
Okay.
I mean, speaking about racism,
Yeah.
I mean, in Japan.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I've come. Yeah, I think I've come
I
to
know,
know
yeah.
that foreigners are not. If you're not ethnically Japanese, you're not even allowed into certain clubs, certain restaurants.
They'll have signs. I mean, you probably know better than I do, but they have signs that just say no foreigners.
Exactly.
And that's not against the law. They can discriminate like that.
Yeah, and I've heard that even if you're Japanese American, you're not considered apparently.
Yep.
They're fully Japanese. It's just it kind of put the world into perspective to me.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's very interesting to experience racism in other countries. But it just kind of reminds you that it's more of a human trait to discriminate versus like it's an American trait. Like there's plenty of people in this country that are like diehard racists or have like serious problems with like, sections of people.
Of course.
But they're not so motivated to do something about it, right? Like they just have, whatever. They say terrible things, but they're not going to like go act on their motivations or even find motivation. So hopefully, right?
Yeah. No. Well, no. Well, so that's why I say, we're very lucky to live in this country.
Yeah, I think that's honestly the biggest takeaway is no matter what's going on, things are difficult, things are scary, there's indecisiveness. This country is worth building it. It's worth the time and the energy and the effort and the money, whatever else you have to put into your desire to make it happen and to have things like you want. Because this country's worth it.
No, it is. I mean, just as an immigrant myself, I was like, there's just so many people. I mean, you can literally go right outside of the border in California and you will see hundreds, thousands of people waiting, to cross the border.
Yeah.
By any means, even if it's illegally, and it kind of puts your perspective into like how lucky we are, to be in this country.
I'm not a big fan of Ronald Reagan. Trickle-down economics has kind of screwed this country for a while, and a perpetuation of the war on drugs has certainly not done us any harm or done us any good. But he has a quote, which I'm not quoting perfectly, but basically, he had said at a conference that a Scotsman will always be a Scotsman.
Mm-hmm.
You can never, you have to be born a Scotsman. Same for an Englishman, same for somebody born in Japan, same for a Chinaman. He said, but anywhere else, or for any other creative person, anywhere else in the world, you can come and become an American, no matter what. If you're born in another country. So it's not so much as I'm an American citizen, I'm a citizen of this country. I'm an American by my willingness to do, or by my ability to enjoy what I have, or to, I don't know. An American is more of an idea than it is a people. And the American idea is to basically live free and be happy. I think a lot of people have fallen from that idea or forgotten that that's what we should stand for.
No, and I completely agree. I mean, coming at least in the 2000s, the patriotism in the United States, for me at least, was much bigger.
I mean,
You
that
know,
was right after 9/11. That was probably I'll say this.
yeah,
Post 9/11 America, that's what I grew up in, was probably the most patriotic time in America's history outside of like
yeah,
a major war.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, we did have a major war afterwards, but you
yeah.
know, but I don't really have too much. I think we talked about a lot of good stuff today. We have a lot of good content. This is going to take a while to edit. It's about 2 hours now, but that's okay. Is there anything else that you have in mind that you wanted to bring up, or is there anything special that we can still speak about? Because for the most part, I'm very satisfied with how things went today. I'm very happy that I was able to have you on, Manuel.
I don't know. I mean, like you said, we've been talking about so many things. You know, I'm down for whatever. I'm down like a clown.
Absolutely. One of the things I've always kept in mind, whether it be with writing like a song, like coming up with a name for a song, is that if you try to title something before it's over, you start to influence what you feel like it should be. So that's why I don't ever say this is what the podcast is going to be labeled or titled as today, so that we can kind of follow that parameter. Which I'm glad we didn't, because I did not think that you and I were going to have the nuanced discussions we have about the ideology of those living in Mexico and some of the things that both of these countries could use and your experiences. That was very, very interesting. And I'm glad I had you on today, because I can't think of anybody else I know that would share in these experiences.
You're welcome.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So this has been fantastic. Thank you, as always, everybody who's been tuning in to the In One Ear Out podcast. As always, I'm your host, John, brought to you today by Manuel. Manuel. No, it's just Manuel. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We will see you again in the next one. Peace out. Adios, mis muchachos. Hasta mañana. Until the next one.